This is the June 9th meeting of the Berlin Zoning Board of Appeals. We are recording this session and your voice or image may be recorded. We'll go around and introduce folks. Leanne.
Here.
Leanne is the inspector and land use clerk. Jim.
Right.
Jim is vice chair. Keith, Susie.
Here.
If you'd raise your hand, please. Jenny.
Oh.
Jenny.
Me, here.
And Pat,
Here.
whose top of her head is all we can see.
Oh, okay.
Okay, what's the first thing on the agenda, Leanne?
Is
Minutes?
approving the minutes of May 12th.
Okay, does someone care to make a motion?
I may move to approve minutes of the meeting from May 12th as distributed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll do roll call. And I. Jim,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
and the head of Pat.
Aye.
Okay. And next,
Is sign warrants.
I'm sorry,
Sign warrants,
and we don't have any, right?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And then we have a discussion of the application.
Yep, review the application with the instructions.
Okay, before we do that, how about if we do reorganization?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll hand things over to Leanne. Leanne's gonna call for nominations for chairman. When she gets a nomination in a second, she can then ask if there's any more nominations. And if there aren't, she can call for a vote. So Leanne, you're in charge.
Okay, I will accept nominations for a chair for ZBA for the upcoming fiscal year FY 2022.
I'll nominate Lynn Ryan.
Second.
Any other nominations?
Can I nominate Lynn again or?
I'll second it again.
Okay, then we'll do a roll call vote. Jim,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Ginny,
Aye.
Denny,
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
It's official.
Thanks, folks, I think. Now I'll accept nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Jim Royer for vice chair.
I second.
We have a nomination in a second. Are there any other nominations for vice chairman? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the nomination of Jim Royer for vice chair. Keith,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
I'm an I, and I'm assuming you're an I, Jim.
I'll abstain.
Oh, you hot ticket. Okay. I'll now entertain nominations for clerk of the zoning board of appeals. Is there a nomination?
I'll nominate Dennis Bartlett for clerk.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call. I'm an I. Jim,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
Dennis. Dennis,
Yes.
Jenny,
Aye.
and the beautiful Pat that we can now see.
We're getting there. Yeah. Hi. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, we've done our reorganization. Okay, now let's discuss the application. There's a few things that we need to talk about. One is, let's see, I've got a couple of notes here. number of copies we need. Who does posting? I think the number of copies is something we can work out with Leanne. I know we want an electronic copy of all sheets that are up to 11 by 14. Isn't that what it is, Leanne?
Yes,
And I think we want an electronic copy and we want, we'll have to decide whether it's 10 or 12 and you can help me do that and I can write it up, okay?
mhm,
The next thing is, these folks pay, well, let's talk about like a special permit. It's $75 to apply for a special permit. I'm not sure what the $75 is supposed to encompass. I don't know if that's supposed to pay for all the things that we do or if it's just a set fee. One of the things that we're doing now that we should not be doing, according to Amy, is having the petitioner send out the notices to the abutters. That is supposed to be a function of the town. And the rationale, this came out of that, remember that, the PowerPoint that I sent you from the class that I went to?
Yeah, Lynn, I
Well-
have never seen that though. Every other town, the individual sends them out. It's not the town that sends them out.
Okay, well, it's up to the board what they want to do. But I then went to Amy and asked her, and she said that no, the petitioner should not be sending out the notices, and the reasoning behind it is that the town itself is supposedly a neutral third party. It prevents manipulation. Now, we wouldn't have to send them out certified, she told me. I would suggest if we start doing it, we use that. Remember the form 3665 or whatever it is from the post office, Leanne?
yep,
But I don't want to put extra work on Leanne. So
Yeah,
one
I
of the things,
agree.
one of the things that I found out from Ellie is that at the time someone sets up, when they go to post, like that she gets a posting for a ZBA hearing, she prints off the assessors, okay, record, that the people, and she prints off labels, mailing labels, so that it would be a case of running off copies of the
notice.
yeah, and then using the labels to mail them out. The other thing would be, I would suggest we use that, I think it's 3665, I forget. You know the form I mean, though, Leanne, right?
I think
That I've
so.
used in the past,
Mhm,
like when we sent it to Whitney Estates and stuff. And
right,
it goes to the post office and and you know this better than I do, Pat. It's
Yeah, they
just
just
acknowledgement that we've sent something to these addresses.
Yeah, and again, that's not, they also have sheets that you could do them on a sheet for like 45 cents a piece. I don't know what it is now, but there's different firm books and there's different things, options, if you guys want to do it.
Well, it's up to the board, but I'm just telling you what Amy told me. That, this is not the way it's supposed to be. But Ellie prints one set of them at that time, and that's for mailing the decision. But if she printed two more, Leanne could use them as stickies for the envelopes and to mail out to the abutters. There would be no return receipt or anything like that because we don't need to do that as if we do it as the board. And then she would have those stickers to put on that form to show to whom she sent things. We can charge, Amy said we can charge for these services. Now, I don't know where that comes in with the $75, but we can charge for anything that we do. For example, I think the assessors charge them $10 for a copy of the
The abutter.
assessors for the abutters.
mhm,
And that could be part of the application that they have to include that. I don't know what we would want to charge them for doing any mailings we would happen to do. It would be minimal, but at the same time, one of the problems they ran into in the past, from my understanding, is that let's say we held a hearing and we didn't give them what they wanted, they never pay for the stuff. So we'd need to find a way to have them pay up front before the hearing began. One of the other things that has been floating around, I know Margaret looked into this, and that's that in order to file for a permit, you need to be current in your taxes. And that's something that we don't check, and I'm not sure exactly how we would do that. My suggestion would be, on the form, we ask them for proof that all obligations to the town have been met, including taxes. I think on the form we should have, do you have, is your property part of a wetland, or are you within the buffer zone of a wetland? I can think of a million things that we should have on that form. Do you have any outstanding, are you in negotiations with any of the boards, Board of Health, Conservation, any of the others? So I'd like to hear what you folks feel.
Lynn, this is off the top of, they don't do it now. I mean, I don't know how much you expect individuals to actually follow through on 99% of this. They can't even fill out their name and address too well. So you're asking them to do an awful lot of extras.
Yep.
It'd be lovely if they did them. What, are you gonna have to walk them through 99% of this stuff?
Or refuse the application. Refuse it as incomplete.
That will make our jobs easier.
Well, I guess my question would be, what's the purpose of all of this? I mean, I get it's to ensure that everything else is being complied with, but it's kind of turning the ZBA into, enforcement for every other board in town.
Yeah.
Is it really the ZBA's responsibility to try to enforce that people pay their taxes, or that if they're in a wetland area or whatever, that they go and get the proper conservation permits? Or is the ZBA's responsibility to hear appeals to the zoning code?
Any other thoughts?
The building, not the building, but the inspector right now walks them through the application partially, right?
He
And
doesn't walk them through the application, but he does provide the letter telling the petitioner what he needs to seek from the ZBA, whether it's a special permit or a variance or
And then Leanne,
site
how
plan
much,
review. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
how much do you get stuck with though, when they can't fill out the applications and stuff?
Well, it just so happened that it happened this week with Mr. Santos, but typically, a lot of times I'm not even involved. They know it gets filed with the clerk. They get the application either online or for Eloise,
Okay.
or 99% of the time, I don't know that there's a upcoming hearing until I get an application that was received by Eloise. Now, Mr. Santos was in this week, and I walked him through the process, and he was one of those where I told him, he needed a certified abutters list. And he says, oh, I know who my neighbors are. I have a list of names. I'll just send it to them. And I said, well, if you don't include the certified list of abutters in your packet with your application, they can reject your application. And so some people, yeah, that's probably only the second time that I've really had to kind of handhold and walk somebody through the process. 9 times out of the 10, they just fill it out and give it and file it with Eloise.
So Lynn, you just basically want them to do as much possible before we get it in front of us. In other words, we've already got a heads up that they're in
Well-
wetlands and that kind of thing.
Number
Sorry,
one,
My
I
phone.
want us to do things the way we're supposed to do things,
Okay.
okay? Legitimately. And number two, yes, I think it would be create an awareness in the petitioner that even if they had to check off boxes and they checked off, no, I'm not in a wetland, and no, I'm not within the buffer zone of a wetland. That would be cause for us to overturn a decision, I'm sure. Well, not us, but one of the neighbors.
I mean, I like the idea of a checkbox, and I like the idea of, getting them to respond to that, but in a way that doesn't burden the whole process. I mean, if we can come up with a form that they can sort of check through all of that, and then, are you up to date in your taxes? Yes, check. But then it's kind of an honor system, right? Like, how else are they going to demonstrate that they're up to date? I don't like the idea of making them, go and find all of their receipts and tax receipts. I wouldn't even know where to begin with that myself. Like, my wife pays our taxes and I would be the one filing for variances. So I don't know. I mean, I definitely understand the need to collect the information. I'm just wondering how we can do it in a way that streamlines it for them and us, so we don't just get overwhelmed with paperwork.
Do you have any thought as to what that could be, Keith?
I mean, you just said a form with checkboxes. I like. I mean, does Amy have ideas of what other towns are doing? Since we didn't even know that we were supposed to be doing it, does she have examples or thoughts about efficient ways to collect that information?
Well, I think one of the things we could do is go out online and look at what the form is like for other towns.
Mm.
Or go to the town clerks in the towns around us. Go to the other towns around us and ask them for copies of their special permit, et cetera, forms.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so you want me to get forms from other towns?
I'd be happy to help if you'd like.
Sure. Okay, so we can do that. How do you feel about us taking over the mailing out of abutter notices? And this would also be the newspaper.
That was going to be my next question. My only concern, although again, like you said, Lynn, I know we can charge them after the fact, but on some of these, when there's a lot of abutters, so the way things are right now, if I'm the one doing it, is I pay out of pocket and then I have to wait for reimbursement, which sometimes, depending on when the board meets again and signs the bill schedule and it gets processed, could be a month. So I don't mind, I do it now occasionally for conservation or whatever, and I don't mind when it's $6.95 or $15 and I have to wait a month. But some of these others, I remember one of the big ones was on River Road when they had to notify all the abutters in Brook Lane, and it was hundreds of dollars. So I'm not really keen on forking over hundreds of dollars out of my pocket and then waiting 2 weeks to a
For a
month.
reimbursement, yeah.
And if someone does file and then just drops it, you're asking them to pay up front before it even goes out then, right? Because they can stop the whole procedure and change their minds and withdraw. How are you gonna follow through and collect money on that?
Yeah, they'd have to pay up front for sure.
Yeah,
Well, I
Leanne?
think they'd have to pay whatever they owe us before we open the hearing.
they should really literally pay at the time of the application, because we've had people not even show up for the hearing.
And then we wouldn't know what their butter list is. So if they're doing an application, we wouldn't know the total of butter costs at that time until we know their property, right?
Well, I think one of the things we could do is we could continue to have as a requirement of their petition that they get an assessor's list. I don't think that was in question because that's an approved list from the assessors.
Yeah, but like,
So,
and that's only $10. Like Leanne says, you're sending out a couple $100 worth of postage and he.
right, well,
they'll
that would
show
be
up.
the second part, would
Hmm.
be when we go to send it out.
I mean, Leanne, you definitely shouldn't be paying anything out of pocket ever anyways. Can't the town open an account with all of these entities, the paper and the post office, and have an ongoing account?
I guess that would be a question for Margaret, who just put her hand up. I am going to promote Margaret to panelist.
Please do.
Yeah.
And there she is.
You're muted, Margaret.
Yeah, let me just.
Yep, there she is.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi,
Hi.
Hi. All right. So I have all right. First, a couple of things. I don't see why the Zoning Board of Appeals couldn't require the applicant to pay for the mailing in a check made payable to the U.S. Postal Service, where the town still does the mailing for them. You know what I mean? I think that there's a way that we could make them pay for the mailing. So that's the first thing. And in a check made payable to the U.S. Postal Service where we actually do the mailing. Because Lynn, you said the requirement is that, or Amy advises that we do the mailing. I
right,
don't see why we can't do the mailing and have the applicant pay for that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is on the requirement.
just on that. What
Yes.
happens is a lot of times an application comes in on the last day, right, Leanne?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're really tight for time to get the
Yeah.
mailing out.
Okay. So, all right, I guess I need a better understanding of when they actually would do them, when they actually do the mailing on their own currently. So you said an application comes in. So if it comes in the last minute, have they already done the mailing?
No,
Have they already? Oh, they haven't. Okay.
when the application comes in, we have to do the posting. We have to create the posting
Okay.
and give them the time and date of their hearing.
Okay.
The problem is that, all right, for example, this month, Leanne, what's the last day they can submit something for next month's?
The deadline, it would be next Wednesday, the 16th. They'd have to file their application by the 16th in order to have enough time to do what's required to have a hearing the following month.
Now, in
Okay.
order to get it in the newspaper, which I think we could still have them do because they would have to produce the newspaper itself, proof that they had posted it. It's just the mailing that I'm concerned with.
Okay. All right. We should probably check. Your ZBA is absolutely right. We should be looking at other applications, but I think I'd like to try to help you figure out a way that the applicant, upon filing the application or right after, be required to actually pay for the mailing where the town does the work. So I'm trying to figure out, how we'd actually get through those.
I think that's a possibility, and this is how I think it could work. When they file their application, they have to include a list of abutters from the assessors. Now, if we use this form 3665 or whatever it is, from the post office, they charge you so much per, it's, Pat, it's like 50 cents a person or something,
Yeah, you're
right?
still doing all the work though.
So we could tell them up front when they file their application that they need to make out a check for X amount of dollars right on the spot. The
Mhm.
problem again is timing, because Leanne works what, Tuesday and Thursday, Leanne?
Mhm.
And the town clerk works
Tuesday,
Tuesday and
Thursday.
Thursday during the day and Wednesday night.
And-
And someone's gotta
So-
go to the post office.
Right.
All right.
And
All right,
hopefully the post office knows what you're talking about.
I can't emphasize enough that well, how much I agree with Keith and everyone else on this, that we should Leanne should not be paying up front for these things. So I'm happy to work with you however we can to try to figure out how the applicant is going to be responsible for paying. We shouldn't be paying up front. Even if we are required, or even if the ZBA determines that we're the ones that are going to be sending the notices to abutters, we should not be on the hook for the payment whatsoever. So I'm happy to work with you, Lynn. If you need me to do any legwork with other towns, contacting them to figure out how they actually do it, I'm happy to help.
Well, I have just as an example, if an applicant goes and gets the abutter list, and let's say there's 50 addresses on that abutter list, if we just automatically charge them $2 in a butter, put that into an account, the town ought
Yeah.
to be able to set it up with that, where there's a bank account that has a debit card attached to it,
Yeah.
that the check could then get deposited directly into that bank account. Leanne could use the debit card to pay the post office and bring back the receipt as an accounting checkpoint. Whatever's left over after the whole process is over with gets refunded back to the applicant.
Yeah. I like that idea. Everything except the debit card. The debit card might present a problem, but there might be a way that we could work with a special fund to be able to do some sort of payment with an offline check or something like that. So
Some kind of revolving account.
exactly.
We used to have that for the people that were coming forward, for the 40Bs and all those fines. And they would give the town of Berlin a sum of money.
Yeah.
And then as we needed it for the lawyers and so forth,
Oh.
we drew out of that account. And
Yeah, that's under chapter 44 consulting fees. So it might be similar to that, not exactly, but it might be similar to something like that. And I'm sure, I'm positive that other towns have systems in place that provide for this. And I'm happy to help you look into this.
But I think that would be a system that we could utilize, and Leanne wouldn't then be stuck, and we would get paid up front, and everybody be above board.
Exactly. That hopefully would be effective here.
Well,
Um,
one of the things I think we need to check on too, Jim, is as I remember having sent out a couple using this form, it was a set amount, $1.50 or something, plus 50 cents per address.
Yeah.
So if we have a list of the abutters, we could tell them the mailing's gonna cost you, and this is when they make the application, the $1.50 plus 50 cents for each abutter, and it must be filed with your application.
Yeah.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Yeah, we just have to figure
Yeah.
out what the cost is, and then,
Mhm.
multiply that cost times the number of abutters, and that's how much they have to write a check out for.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
The
that
question is to whom do they write the check?
Because then also when they go to the town clerk with the application to file it, they're also then paying the $75 fee for a permit. So now you're talking two separate fees and two different checks going to, one's getting filed with the clerk and one's being left with me.
yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was one of the other questions that I had. What is this $75 supposed to cover? Is it supposed to cover all of this stuff? Do we have a right to charge them $75 and then in turn charge them additional monies for mailings, etc.
That's a
Well,
great question.
And
I-
if not, if that includes in the $75, how do I get that $75 or whatever portion I need to then do the mailing? And what happens? Well, and that might not even work because a $75 permit fee, I know one of the hearings was over $200 that Marissa on River Road was complaining because it cost her over $200 to do the mailing. So a $75 fee filed with the clerk wouldn't be enough.
Right, and we
Not-
ran into the same thing up on Sawyer Hill Road, Sawyer Hill LLC. Because there's, umpteen gazillion units up there.
Mhm.
We had to send it-
is assumed to help cover the administrative costs for processing the permit and preparing, and preparing for the hearings and everything. So,
That's what I think it is, but that's what I want to make sure we're on solid ground and someone doesn't call us on it.
right, right. The only other point that I wanted to make was on the requirement, or not a requirement, but confirmation that taxes are up to date, tax payments are up to date. So it was the town that adopted the statute for requiring that tax payments be made in order to issue permits. However, the way the bylaw is written, it says a border committee may require that taxes be up to date. Essentially, that's what it says. So this is the ZBA's choice as to whether or not you want to include that checkbox on your application. The other thing is that Dennis, as the treasurer, is supposed to provide a list of the delinquent taxpayers to all boards and committees, to all licensing authorities, at least once a year. So he would actually be responsible for providing that information. We might have to do a little legwork to check if the ZBA wanted, but you would have at least an annual list of those individuals. So I just wanted to note that.
Margaret, can I ask a question regarding taxes, but it's not really ZBA, but while I have you. So in the building department, it's part of our checklist when people apply for a permit. And after I do my initial review, it goes straight to Dennis and he either approves or denies it. But
Yeah.
what happens is what's happening there is, and I just had one, he denies it because taxes aren't collected. And it's the contractor who filled out the application. So they're the one getting notified. And then it sits there because whose responsibility is it to now try to collect the money? I don't feel it's mine. So
No.
Dennis rejects it and does nothing
Oh,
more.
Dennis
The
doesn't have,
contractor says, I'm not responsible for collecting taxes. And so it kind of sits in limbo.
okay,
And everybody's like, who's, so
All
now
right.
we know they owe taxes and it got denied, but who's responsible for collecting that?
okay. So if it was Leanne, are you referring to a building permit?
Mhm.
Okay, so Dennis doesn't have the authority to approve or reject a permit. Dennis only has the authority under the bylaw to provide the list of, I have no other way to put this, but delinquent taxpayers. It
Mhm.
is to Richard to determine whether or not the permit will be issued or not.
Yeah, I
So,
guess I phrased it wrong. So it's,
Okay.
we have a workflow and
Yeah.
it just goes through all these people before it gets to Richard and he
Okay.
does have final approval. But
Yeah.
sometimes when Dennis, I'll use the word red flags it, when he stops it because it doesn't move forward in the workflow. So I guess
Okay.
Dennis shouldn't be stopping it. He could make a comment, but he doesn't have the right to actually stop it.
no, that's correct. He can
Okay.
comment, he can say that there are taxes that are outstanding. And then it's up to the licensing authority, in this case, it was Richard, to say that you must pay your taxes in order for the permit to be issued, or again, it's an optional thing under our bylaw, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I think maybe for our purposes, the best thing would be to have them check off a box. Are you current with your obligations to the town?
Yep.
And then we accept the petition on that basis. And if we find out later that this is false, then we can refuse to grant the permit.
There you go.
Well, and
that's-
that would only apply to like site plan reviews and whatnot, because a regular appeal of the building inspector would have already gone through that process.
That's not a license being issued, that's an appeal process. So it's not a license or permit being issued, right?
Yeah.
In that particular case, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody just comes to us for a variance, that's already gone through Richard, so he's already done that process. But a site plan review wouldn't go through him.
Right. Yeah. Again, I just want to emphasize that this is optional for boards and committees, the way our bylaw is written. So I want to be clear on that.
I
Okay.
think on that topic, folks, the best thing we do is we have them check off a box. I'm current with all obligations to the town, including taxes. And then later on, if we're looking for a reason not to do something, we can go back and check. I mean, I think to have them go to the town treasurer every time and get certification that they're up to date on their taxes wouldn't mean much of anything, because if we're doing a 40B, it could last for 7 months, and maybe they weren't in arrears at the beginning, but they might be now. Okay, what I'm getting from what you folks are saying,
Well,
Um,
I'm curious while we have Margaret here. The other question of other boards, as far as, are we coordinating with other boards, or are we stepping on other boards' toes if we start asking, you know, is your requested permit to build located within a wetland? Are we stepping on conservation, or are we coordinating with them?
I think that's the reason we have a liaison.
Well, but I'm all for working with and coordinating with other boards. I have no problem with doing that, but I don't want to be their enforcement either. If conservation wants to enforce conservation laws or rules, that's up to them to do. It's not up to in my opinion, it's not up to the ZBA to enforce their stuff for them. So I'm not sure how this would be seen by those other boards.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. The only reason I would ask the question is because then we could forward it to the Conservation Commission saying, these folks say that they're in a wetland. What do you, please
Well,
advise.
Aren't we supposed to forward everything to all the other boards anyway?
Do you think they read it?
But Jim, we also don't know if there's a wetland. I mean, this is just another means of open communication. This is all, I mean, confusing to even us, but for the applicant, at least for the small, inexperienced applicant, they just have no idea. So it's a nice way to sort of organize what their needs are, and to just bring attention to things like conservation. Maybe that's the first time they see that that's something that's an issue. So I don't see it as policing them or even stepping on other boards. I just see it as another means of communication. Hey, by the way, this needs to get done. Have you checked this off the list?
There you go. And that's the way I would see something like that, as a self-certification rather than enforcement or policing or crossing boundaries with other, with other boards and committees. It's more a self-certification.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of an honor system, right? Like we don't know if they have a wetland, and we're not, we're just taking their word for it that, hey, yeah, I did take consideration in the wetlands. And same with their taxes. We're not going to double check. We're not going to go,
To the treasurer and say, are they up to date? No, we're not.
We're just bringing them aware that this is something that needs to happen,
Yeah, and as Lynn said, if this is found later on later on in the process that the information they've provided is inaccurate, then there could be consequences, as far as granting permits. So I think, it seems reasonable, and it seems reasonable for applicants to be educated about what they need in order to apply for permits with the ZBA.
So what I'm getting from you folks is, number one, as far as posting in the newspaper, we'll leave that as the responsibility of the petitioner and require them to show proof before we open the hearing. Is that how we all feel about it?
That
Mhm.
works.
That's similar to what's happening right now.
It is what's happening right now.
Right.
But I thought you said that, Amy said that we should move away from that.
She's talking about the abutters. If they can prove they posted the posting that we created in
Okay.
the newspaper on a certain date, there's no argument. Do you know what I mean? They
Okay.
produced the bill, they paid for it, and it was posted
Okay.
on whatever date it was, and we just checked the date. So I don't think that's a real issue. I think where the issue comes is sending notification to the abutters, because this is the petitioner perhaps picking and choosing to whom he sends things, or making a mistake on one of the addresses, okay? And it not getting to someone. So we don't even have to send it certified. And if we can find out what that form costs us, plus how much per person on the form, we can tell them at the time they apply what they need to give us in the way
Keep
of
in
money.
mind, Lynn, just keep in mind that usually they don't apply with me, they go to Eloise. So this kind of would be put on her shoulders, like I said, except for, unless we're saying that they have to submit the application to me.
On the application form, it would say notification of the abutters is $1.50 plus 50 cents for every abutter. Please, at the time of your application, make a check made out to the US Postal Service
Okay, yeah,
for the correct amount,
Well,
okay?
and we can put the math right there. This, you have X number of abutters times, $2.25 each equals whatever, make the check out
Okay.
for this amount.
right, when they file it. Okay, yep. Makes
Does
sense.
that make sense to you, Leanne?
Yep, yep,
So that when you go to the post office, you'll have their check. You'll have the mailing and the form, okay, that the post
Yeah.
office
I'll
stamps.
just have to coordinate with Eloise that when she accepts the application, and she gives me the ZBA's copy, that she gives me that check as well, because she'll be
Right.
the one receiving it.
Well, we also have a right to refuse an incomplete application. And Leanne, if you ever feel you've gotten an incomplete application, why don't you check with me or and Jim, and we can take a look at it, and if we feel it's incomplete, we can reject it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna keep with the posting in the newspaper of by the petitioner. We're going to find a way to be able to determine how much the mailing will cost us at the post office, and require the check be given in at the same time they file their for their permit. And then what else do we want? Number of copies, Leanne and I will work out. We need at least one electronic copy so everybody can have an electronic copy. And then I think we need at least 10 copies, or did we decide more, Leanne?
Well, I mean, there's 7 people on the board and 1 for me for the file, so there's a minimum of 8, but like Jim was saying, it's also supposed to go to planning board,
Conservation.
conservation, the building department. So first of all, people don't always submit 10 copies, but when they do, Eloise takes what she needs for the other boards and gives me what's left. And so sometimes that's 3 copies, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's the 10, sometimes I always get varied amounts, because she always takes first what she needs for all the other boards and then gives me whatever's left.
Right, okay. We'll have to work that out among ourselves.
Okay,
The next thing is the letter from Rich. I think we should require, we may not want to call it a letter, but a statement from the building inspector as to what's needed. Does that make sense, folks?
Yes.
Yeah, when Joe H.U. was building commissioner, he had designed a form that he liked to use. So instead of a letter, it was a form where they filled out the top, he filled in the bottom, and that's what was sent to the ZBA. Rich it doesn't like Larry does. He likes to write the letter. And same thing
So
when
if
I
we,
trying to explain to Mr. Santos, because he didn't know what he was filing an application for. So I reminded him about the letter. And I said, it will say in the building commissioner's letter exactly what you need from the ZBA. And so that's what you put on the application. And he called up the letter, we found the letter, and I pointed it out to him. I said, but the letter always specifies what you need to go before the board for.
yeah, and that's important because one of the things we don't want to do is to have them come and apply for a special permit and then find out they also need a variance,
Mhm.
which has happened years ago. So if they get a letter from Rich, then, or some kind of a statement from Rich in whatever form he wants to give it to them, then if they also need a variance, they don't have to get it because he hasn't asked for it. But at least we have covered our bases. We can only give
Mhm.
them what they ask for.
Yeah, I don't, to my knowledge, we've never had a problem with any of the letters that Rich has sent.
No, we haven't.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with those. I mean,
Okay, is there anything else anyone would like to see in the application that isn't currently there? Did everybody get a copy of what Leanne sent them out for last meeting of the application? Is there anything that, shouts out to you when you say that doesn't need to be there? Or there's something missing?
I mean, it just seemed very complicated to me, but I guess that's
I'm sorry, I can just barely hear you, Keith.
it seemed very complicated to me, but I guess that's just the nature of the
Okay, is there anything you would eliminate that's on the form?
I'd have to look a closer look. No,
Okay,
nothing at the moment.
well, with your permission, how about if I work with Jim, if Jim is interested in developing a new form and see if we won't take personally any criticism and see if we can get it sent out to you before the next, will we, Jim?
well, you speak for yourself.
That's what I was afraid of. But we can't be sensitive, folks can pick and choose what they like and don't like, but we'll get something. You have the original. I encourage everybody to read the original. And then I'll work with Leanne about the numbers. Ginny and I will work on other towns, and maybe Margaret can give us a hand with that. And Pat, maybe you and I can check with the post office about that form. You're not interested, okay. I can go down to the post office and find out what the rate is. It's so much, but again, that's subject to change, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Okay, is there anything else? Is everybody in agreement that Jim and I will work on something for next month, and then we'll get it out to you at least a few days before the meeting, and hopefully you'll take a look at it, and maybe we can come up with something to finalize. Margaret, I really think you would be the best one maybe to contact a couple of your cohorts, colleagues, and find out what they are doing as far as these items. And maybe even get a couple of sample, would you be interested in doing that?
I will reach out to my colleagues across the state and see if we can get a few samples.
Excellent. And that would be
Okay.
for applications, and ask them how they deal with the
The butter notification.
notification of abutters.
Okay, all right, I'll do that too.
Okay, is there anything else, guys? I think we covered everything on the agenda, right, Leanne?
Yes.
I have one additional item. I got a email contact from Jason Rowley from the Economic Development Committee. And I guess they want to put up some new Welcome to Berlin signs around town. So he was asking for my input on that from the zoning side of it, as far as what the zoning requirements were for signs. I referred him to Richard. I gave him a link to the town's zoning ordinance and told him to, signage starts on page 83. Here you go, read up, go discuss it with Richard, kind of a thing.
If the municipality does it, they're exempt.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't know,
I also mentioned to them, I asked them what kind of a sign they're looking for, and I think they want some fancy dancy sign. Well, Assabet has a Metal Arts, okay? And they've done some beautiful work. And I suggested they might want to talk to them. It might be the cheapest way to get the signs.
yeah, I just wasn't sure how that works. I mean, I knew if it's an official town thing, it doesn't really fall under the bylaw, but for example, the bylaw says signs can only be 3 colors or no more than 3 colors. I don't know if that applies to town originated signs as well or whatever. So I just told him to talk to Richard.
Yep, he's the zoning officer. He should know.
He's also the sign officer. Who knew?
He's a sign police, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions?
Yes.
Hi,
Okay.
Denny.
Hi, are we gonna spend any more money this year?
Denny, I did just put an order in or received an order for the envelopes and pens I needed. So as soon as I get the invoice, I'll get a bill scheduled to you.
Okay, because it's,
But it's under $100, so that's all we're
that's all you
spending.
could spend. That's all you could spend.
I don't need anything.
Well, that CPTC class I went to was $20, but I can't imagine putting in a voucher for just $20.
Hey, I put in vouchers for $6.95 when I pay to mail stuff for another committee.
You should, and I have put it in for mail too, when I've sent out like to Whitney Estates or whatever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because we haven't spent anything yet. We still have $500.
Yeah,
Well,
this is
that's-
under, I'm not sure what the total is, but it's under $100, but I'll get that to you, or I'll let you know as soon as I get the invoice.
How many people are interested in going to the next CPTC program?
In March, next March?
Yeah.
See what next March brings, but yeah.
Yeah,
That would have to come from next year's money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Is there anything, there was something coming up too, Leanne, wasn't there? Didn't I see something about 40B?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Didn't it?
Fortunately, we may not need to deal with that again.
Yeah, I think there was something about 40B.
I take it you guys are all 40B'd out, huh?
Yep.
Okay, Louise didn't join us, did she?
Nope, and neither did Chris Keefe, but they also knew, there was no hearings or public hearings or.
Yeah, Chris called me and let me know she wanted us to talk about the tax situation. But I think the best way, and I think Jim and I will end up doing it that way, is just to ask the question, are you current?
Yeah,
And then if it's false, okay, we may want to use that information later on. Do you know what I mean, Jim?
Yeah.
And everybody's comfortable with that, right?
mm-hmm.
Yes.
Leanne, are you
Yes.
comfortable with doing the abutters mailings if you get labels from the town clerk if you get a check in advance made payable to the postal service from the petitioner.
Mhm.
So that,
Yes,
so it wouldn't be a terrible increase in your workload, right?
nope, no,
Okay,
I can manage that.
okay. And everybody else is comfortable with that, right?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'd want the check made out to the postal service, but,
Well, we don't
act-
have an account to put it in, right?
well, maybe that's something to figure out, but the issue there is if you tell somebody, you know, you have to make a check out for $87.12 to the US Postal Service, and Leanne takes the stuff over there and it only comes to $62, what do you do? Now
Well,
you
the
have,
other thing is, what if they withdraw
Mhm.
before the hearing? Do you know what I mean? Or,
well,
we
if they withdraw after it's been mailed, then that's on them.
no, but I'm saying, what if we refuse them? In other words, we say your application is incomplete.
We give them the opportunity to go back and amend their application and come back to us.
Jenny, you got a lot of alcohol there. Are you gonna be
Oh, yeah.
sharing?
He didn't even invite us.
There's disadvantages to standing up, Jenny.
I had to turn the light on so I could see you.
Ah,
He was sitting in the dark with all those bottles.
well, thank you, Leanne, because I know it will be some work, but I think if we leave the posting in the newspaper and just do the mailing of the posting, maybe that will be something we can absorb.
Yep.
Okay, so
So,
for next
Lynn,
time,
I just
Jim and I
wanted
will,
to- Oh,
I'm
so-
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Leanne.
No, go finish what you were saying. I thought you were done.
Okay, so just for next time, we're gonna have a review of whatever it is that Jim and I come up with, right?
So I was just gonna let the board know that the deadline for a July hearing is next Wednesday. So as of now, I have not received anything, but they have up until next Wednesday night to submit application. I'm not expecting anything. There's nothing on the horizon except for the Mr. Santos, that lot on Old Central Street that we discussed last month. He did come in to see me and I did give him an application and explain things to him as best I could. He doesn't think he'd have everything he needs or be ready to file next week to get a July hearing. So potentially we're looking at a hearing with him in August.
And what would he want to do, Leanne?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. He bought the lot because he just wants to store cars there. And so he's been informed by the building commissioner that that's not allowed, but an allowable use would be a used car dealership with up to 10 cars. So now I'm not sure that's a, and he would need, he's got a non-conforming lot, so he needs a variance. And then I guess he would need a special permit and a site plan review. And Margaret can also speak to that.
Yeah, this is all stemming from the earthwork permit bylaw and the requirement for him to get an earthwork permit because he would like to bring in 1,200 cubic yards of fill to fill in the back portion of the lot. And like Leanne said, we think his initial intent was to store cars there, but Richard has told him multiple times in writing and verbally that he can't just store cars there. The importation of earth must be incidental to the construction of a commercial facility or a business. And that's why he's been referred to the ZBA, because the select board, as the earthwork board, wants to know that he is actually importing earth for that purpose. So just so you know, I have reached out to town council. I reached out to Amy and Janelle, specific questions on this, the board's earthwork permit. hearing has been continued to June 21st. So we expect more information to come forward by then. Okay.
He's
I don't
bound
know
by,
that it's ever, I don't know that it, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's gonna make its way to you. We need clarification as to whether or not evidence from the applicant for the earthwork permit is required before he's able to import earth materials to the site. So
What is that land zoned as? Commercial or residential?
I wish I could tell you the exact zoning, but it does not allow the storage of cars and trucks. That I do know because Richard has made that very.
I have a copy of
clear.
Richard's letter here. Hang on a second. It's located in a commercial zoning district. It's 0.23 acres of land, 156 feet of road frontage, I guess, which he doesn't have, and it's located in a commercial zoning district.
and
Richard has informed him he'd need a variance. And that storage of cars and trucks is not allowed in that district.
He's gonna need a lot of stuff, variance for frontage, pre-existing non-conforming lot that has no building on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
but he's bound from one side with the state on 495. And then on the back side, he's bound by the railroad tracks.
Yes, he is.
I don't know how you can get 1,200 yards of fill in there unless he builds a cement
mountain.
wall all around the back side of it.
Yeah. Well, again, we've reached out to town council for some advice on this matter. The earthwork bylaw or the earth import bylaw is not clear. It says that it must be incidental to the building, to the construction of a commercial building or facility, but it does not say that the applicant must have applied for variances and approvals for the construction of the building. So it doesn't go that far. So we're looking for clarification from town council, and I will certainly let you know what we hear.
Well, Margaret, I think that's pretty easy. If he hasn't filed, that means he doesn't have any commercial use on that property, so I don't see how he could do anything.
There you go.
You know, it's not, even after he applies, he doesn't have an existing commercial use. Because he hasn't got a permit yet.
Yeah. There you go. That's
What
That's
address is
common
this?
sense.
There's
It's-
no address. It's map block. It's Old Central Street. It's map 21, block 42, lot 0.
I bet you the neighbors are gonna love that. Does Pat have her hand up?
No, Pat just had to go quick with the
Oh,
dog.
no, but I see a hand up.
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Okay, guys. Are we done?
We need to schedule next month's meeting.
Oh, that's right, because it may not be the second Wednesday.
Well, the second Wednesday is July 14th. And here's the thing, I'd have to check the other Zoom channels because the third Wednesday on this channel is the Conservation Commission's. They have third Wednesday. So I would have to see if one of the other channels was available if you decide to switch to the third Wednesday.
Well, it's gonna be virtual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that it's virtual, none of you have an excuse not to attend, right?
Thought I
mean,
had one.
I'm sorry?
I thought I had one.
You were wrong.
Lynn and all, my phone is about to die, so I just want to thank you for letting me attend your meeting, and I'm going to follow up with my colleagues across the state on those items we discussed earlier.
Thank you, Margaret.
All right, thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay cool. All right.
Bye.
Can we leave it the 14th, given that, are you gonna be on a boat or anything, Leanne?
Not on a, no, actually, because my vacation is around the 4th of July week, so I'll be back.
Okay, what about the rest of you? Can you live with the 14th?
I probably am not going to be here, but I'm inconsequential anyways.
What?
That's not true.
No.
Co-host.
Keith, we need a good reason here. I mean, are you gonna be in Japan or something?
No, but I'm going to be doing a big shoot in Boston, and it's unlikely I'll be back by 7.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
Is another date better for you?
What's that? I mean, no, don't move it all on me. I have that week, and then the following week are just really busy weeks.
Okay. Will you do me a favor? When we send you out what Jim and I develop, would you make any comments and mail them back?
Sure. I can do that.
I'd like everybody that can to participate. Okay, everybody's okay with the 14th? And we like 7 o'clock, do we?
Mhm.
Yes, Jim.
I was just giving you a
Oh,
thumbs
you
up.
just thumbs up? Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Oh, we gotta do, last month's, or do we already do that?
The minutes,
We
Yeah.
already
We
approved
did
the
them.
minutes. Yep.
you voted too.
Did I?
Yeah,
Yep, you approved them, Benny.
I'll make a motion, we close this meeting.
okay, is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Second,
There's a
Okay,
lot of-
Jim,
Aye.
Pat,
aye.
Ginny,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
and I'm an I.